And let's get a little more into the book itself. How's it laid out, or what specifically will I be learning and reading it?
Well, there's basically two parts, Emmett, and the first part, it really has a lot of brain research. I mean, when people talk about serious research, actually, I am not a scientist, and I took this information and put it into terms that I feel people will understand, lay people will understand. So we talk about what the brain is in terms of its neurology and its DNA and how it works, and then how the mind works with the brain, how they're co-workers together. What happens when they flow together, when the brain and the mind are flowing in a natural kind of rhythm and flow? Life is good. It's easy. Doors open. It flows. You feel great. But what happens when that doesn't happen?
Mm-hmm.
And so I show that in the brain and the mind, when stress occurs, it stops this flow. It creates disease. So we have people that are depressed, OCD, maybe ADD, so we can get that extreme, or just people that aren't happy. Just unhappy people. Things aren't working out well, and they're stressed, and they react, and, that kind of thing. So I go into the brain, the mind, the flow, and what happens when you have stress. So I describe stress, the chemical responses to stress. So that's the first part of the book, giving you a lay of what the science is about. Then I talk about the brain and its electrical and chemical components. So when you have frequencies, that's electrical. So we have brain frequencies. And then it seems as though you must have a little chemical at the end of the little neurons that hop over to the next neuron to run the current through to the next neuron so that you have information going. You have this little chemical, and a lot of them are called now neurotransmitters. So I talk about the 4 neurotransmitters, and the 4 brainwaves, and how that makes us up. What happens to us? And that all is described in the later part of the book, where I go through each brainwave and talk about what happens when you have too much of them, what happens when you have too little, and what happens when it's just right.
Okay. So it helps us to really learn more about the brain. And of course, I think having read your book, I must say it does it in a way that makes it very accessible, that you don't have to speak Greek or science to understand it. And I think we're coming on to an era now where the mystery is being taken out of the mind and thinking and the brain. I can recall when I first started practicing medicine, that the head was kind of a black box. We just didn't know very much of what was going on inside of it. But with our ability to really look much more closely, both electrically in terms of looking at our EEG, but also what we understand about those neurotransmitters and how they function. And then as you described, the work that they've done, examining people who are meditating or people who are in other states, highly stressed states of mind. We know so much more about it, and I think your book makes that knowledge now much more accessible to people. And brain is, of course, a wonderful tool. And the effectiveness of any workman or artist depends to a huge extent upon how well they understand the tool. If you don't understand the tool you're using, how can you use it? And our emotions are based upon how we use this tool of the brain. Our effectiveness in whatever we do, our ability to perform at our peak, our ability to communicate, create relationships, all depends upon our being able to use this instrument, this tool effectively. So you really give an opportunity for a person to understand, I can see what the pieces of it are and kind of how they work together.